Characteristic of good data. First, it have to be relevant. Does the data measured capture what's matter? Measure what is needed. For example, during corona pandemic, many deaths have been flagged as corona related. Meanwhile, after this report were issued, they discovered that the majority of the deaths have nothing to do with directly with corona. The data has to be credible. Data should be correct and precise. Is the measured data believable? Will it be viewed as a reasonable and appropriate way to capture the information thought? For example, during the period of 2024, 2025, inflation rate have been reported as 5, 6, 7, 8. Meanwhile, you go to the supermarket and you discover that the inflation is much higher than this. Renting and other indicative measures were against that. So credibility now is a question mark about the way they calculate inflation rate. Valid. Cross-check data with other sources to ensure validity. How well does the data measured capture what is supposed to? During our implementation of the National 2030 vision, we had to go to around 23 ministries to make sure that the data they are sending related to the measures and KPIs are valid. So we ask for evidence, we ask for the data source just to make sure it is valid data. Reliability data should be consistently collected in the same way to ensure comparability. Data measures precision and stability extend, which the same result would be obtained with repeated trial. So when you repeat the same method or the same trial again and again, you most likely you're gonna get the same results, depending of course on how big is the sample is. So now let's take it one by one and talk more about it. First, let's start with relevance. Alignment with objectives. The data should directly reflect the goal or objective of the measurement. For example, if a company wants to measure customer satisfaction, collecting data on product return rate might not be as relevant as collecting feedback through survey or net promoter scores NPS, which is directly related to the satisfaction versus product return. Appropriate metrics. Ensure that the metrics chosen are the right indicators of performance or impact. As you know, there's the logic module start with input, output, outcome, and impact. There's four levels of measurement at the performance level. Example, for assessing employee productivity, tracking hours worked might be less relevant than measuring project completion or quality of output. And this is my favorite one, putting KPIs at the end, not really throughout the process because they might burning a lot of hours, but their output is very weak. Stakeholder needs. The data should address the concerns or needs of the stakeholders involved. For example, in a health study, if stakeholders are interested in patient recovery times, data on hospital readmission would be more relevant than data on average length of hospital stay. Credibility. Accuracy. Data should be accurate and reflect the true value of what is being measured. For example, if a survey report 90% satisfaction rate, but the methodology was flawed, for example, you are selectively going to certain people by a sample, the data lacks credibility in this case. We see it all the time in customer satisfaction surveys. We go and ask the right question in the right way, in the right location for the right people, and here you go, you have 90%. Source reliability. Data should come from trusted and authoritative sources. For example, financial data from audited financial statement is more credible than data from unaudited internal reports. Methodology. The method used to collect data should be appropriate and robust. For example, using a scientifically validated survey tool to measure mental health outcomes was designed by experts, they know exactly what they're doing, is more credible than a self-developed questionnaire with no validation by any expert. Validity, consistency with other data. Data should align with findings from other reliable sources or studies. Example, if a new education program reports improved student grades, this is great. This should be consistent though with external assessment or standardized test scores like the national, for example, test at the end of the high school. Theoretical alignment. Data should align with theoretical expectation or models. Example, if a theory suggests that increased study time improves test scores, in this case, data showing a positive correlation between study time and test performance supports validity. Logically, they should go hand by hand, but with this study, supporting this funding will be a great thing to present at the same time. Cross verification, validate data through multiple methods or sources. We talked about this one early on. For example, if a company measuring employee engagement uh, could cross verify survey results with turnover rate and internal performance reviews, all these three together, engagement, turnover rate, and performance review, they should go hand by hand in the same direction. The last one is reliability. Data consistency in measurement. Data collection method should be standardized to ensure consistent results. For example, using the same questionnaire format and administration process and repeated employee satisfaction survey ensure reliability. If you're changing, for example, year after year, the questions drastically, they cannot be compared to each other because the questions are different. And you will find probably the satisfaction go up 10 points and go down 10, 15 points due to that. Repeatability, data should produce similar results when collected repeatedly under the same conditions. For example, if a lab test for blood sugar levels is conducted multiple times on the same sample, the one that we took, for example, from somebody's body, results should be consistent if the test is reliable. Stability over time. Data should remain stable over time, assuming no significant changes in the underlying condition. For example, historical weather data should show consistent temperature pattern if the measurement instrument and method remain unchanged. For example, in Singapore, during this month, the average temperature is 25. If you go back many years in the past, you probably are going to find it very close to 25 degrees.